Hi, everyone. So, in case you missed it recently, in the last few years, um, I'm going to talk a little bit about the American context. Trans people are under attack. There were over 500 proposed bills last year, state level. We only have 50 states. It's like 10 per state on average. Some of them were some states had one or two, and many had many more. And there's definitely anti-gender work, organizing being done by the right. In Canada, in the UK, my God, on such a large level. And somehow trans people are to blame for the climate change. I can tell you, we are not that organized. Trans people are to blame for the fall down of culture and all these things. And if you didn't notice and you were alive in the 80s and 90s, almost all trans people died, were put in prison permanently, where they were murdered, raped, mutilated, on TV, movies, Law and Order, for years and years, years and years and years and years. And it's only lately that we see or hear positive stories of trans people. And that has taken its toll on every single living trans person. The number of people identifying as trans or non-binary, I'll give you that one if you don't have it. That was people who don't believe in a binary gender system or just gender non-conforming. You're a woman who only likes a pant, a man who likes a kimono, a man, woman. Or these categories. If you are someone who studies hormones, you'll know that this stuff is really unclear and chat made up. And in this section, our module, we're going to be talking about the book Subject to Change. And then we're going to be writing found poetry. And I'll talk a little bit more about a found poem. But they're fun. And they are the easiest poems to write. And they're the most low key, because you're going to use actually other people's words. So this book I found in a bookstore not far from where I live, in Cumtuck, Wabanaki lands, which is also known as Western Massachusetts. And it contains the work of the poets Joshua Jennifer Espinoza, Christopher Soto, Beza Ozar, Cameron Awkward Rich, Kay Olunde Barrett, and put together by Ishmael. And I was able to talk to 5 of the poets. I want to give you a heads up that maybe some of their videos will be there. I know Cameron Awkward Rich's will be. Everyone else is still deciding, because we didn't know that this would be public access, that anyone could click on them. And trans privacy, and this becomes like a good case for us, is really important and really hard. Like, what did I say in that video that I thought would be shared just with medical professionals, but anyone could click on? And don't worry, I have other videos for you to watch. But what's amazing about this little book, and I mentioned, I think, in the intro, is that it contains interviews along with poems. And so I'm definitely going to read a poem and kind of some highlights from the interview with Joshua Jennifer Espinoza. And to say that what you're going to do in your assignment is to pick 2 poets actually, and read their poems and their interviews. You can just pop around. I would encourage you actually to start from the interview, to kind of look at what they talk about, and then say, do I want to read this person's poems, right? Or maybe you're someone who's like, I just want to check out the poems. The poem might be weird to me. Okay. So going to Joshua Jennifer Espinoza's, I'm going to read one of her poems, which I love. I imagine all my cis friends laughing at tranny jokes. Cis is spelled CIS for cisgender. It means people who do not identify as transgender. Transgender, most briefly, is people who identify with a gender and or sex that they did not get assigned at birth. So I imagine all my cis friends laughing at tranny jokes. I imagine all my cis friends laughing at tranny jokes whenever I'm not around. I can hear the sound of rain outside, and I'm grasping for words to say this. There's nothing I love more than an honest storm, broken dishes, dead grass. The time has come for me to be alive and for you to stop speaking. Please stop speaking. Please stop speaking. I have never felt alone as this, I say every day. I have never felt so alone. I've built houses in corners of houses and filled them with all my longings, my strength, my pride, my beauty, my woman self. I read another comment section of an article about trans women, and I want to die, to not exist, to let them win. I don't let them win. I circle the drain and kiss my fingers below. I welcome them back. This complex trauma responds only to the dialectical, only to the heat and the cool, the death and the life. Only when then is it lifted for a moment to let me breathe. I breathe the sweet air and stare at the hillside and then at the road and then at the cars and then at the sky, all so unsure of themselves, all so softly shaking in place, all so beautifully living. I didn't know Joshua Jennifer Espinosa's work before this, and I just love this. So many things that she said, so I thought I would read to you. And they ask her, "Is there a thing as trans literature?" She said, "No, I don't believe that exists anymore." She said, "There are trans people who write. There are institutions that canalize certain things as trans literature, but I don't see translit as a stable or coherent category." Why would she say that? I also think it should be. It's important to think about who gets left out, right? Trans as a concept is steeped in whiteness and colonial notions of what gender is. There are writers who identify as non-binary or gender non-conforming and who don't have access to the capital T transness in the same way that white people do. And I think that that's really important for you to think about while you're reading and you're writing about who's in here, right? This is a wildly diverse group. None of these people, Beza Ozar is a first generation uh, Eastern European immigrant. Otherwise, no one in here would be is identified as white per se. You're Latinx and Black and Asian, and transness. There's a great quote from Cameron Awkward Rich who says, "Transness at a minimum is the acceptance of radical change, right, and the possibility thereof." So when you're reading these poems, you're going to see a lot of poems about being alive, about bodies. And what you want to do is you read these poems is just to sit with them. That's it. Just read them and sit with them. And the other thing is, because we're going to write found poetry, is to take words you like, to take phrases. You might really, really like a phrase, you might really like a word. And I want you to write them all down. Just write them down on a piece of paper. And that's all you need for the third module. Do I want you to be do I want you to develop deep empathy? You might not really connect any of these poets. You might be like, whoa, I think this is a beautiful little book. It has gone into multiple printings, and everyone in it is shocked that it has. But it is short and it is tight. You might want to read it in the whole thing. I promise that each poet is better than the next in some magical way, no matter what order you read them. And we're going to talk about how to write found poetry and what that looks like next.